Okay, so I've now drawn a front view and a side view, and so it's pretty much just, we just need to save this out and get it ready to bring into Cinema 4D. But first I want to turn off those kind of sketch layers, early sketch layers, and these guides, because we're not going to need those when we actually bring this into Cinema. So, but let me do this too. I'm going to go ahead and crop this image so that it's just this right here. All right. I'm going to save it as this. Well, first let me save it as a Photoshop file, so we have that. CharacterTurnaround.psd, but you really only need a JPEG when you're bringing this into Cinema 4D, so let's save it as a JPEG as well. There we go. You could also save out, you know, if you're in your crop tool, you could also save out just the front view and just the side view. But I'm going to show you how to do that in Cinema. We'll just prepare a plane in Cinema and bring this in, and we'll just get rid of the other one. So, all right, so that's the character turnaround. So I'm going to open up Cinema now. So let me start that part again. So that's the character turnaround, and so now I'm going to open up Cinema. And don't be scared, because this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to create our own character from scratch. And I'm going to go through each tool as we need them. We're not going to go through the entire interface and talk about every single piece of all the modeling tools until we actually need to use it. And that's kind of one of the, the themes of Cinema 4D is that every day you use it, so you'll tend to learn something new each time. I think it's a very common thing I'll hear all the time, like, I didn't know that you could do that, and it's something that over time, you just start to pick up everything that you need while you need it, or you can always look up something when you need it. So right now, all we want to do is we want to create a plane. And over here, and that's right here under this parametric primitives menu, you just grab the plane by clicking on it. I want to make this face me, so I'm going to do a +Z on that axis orientation. And let's make the width and height 1920 by 1080, just to make sure it's the right ratio here, but then we can scale it down. We can just scale it down so that it's in our view here. Okay. So that changed all the width and height right there, but that's okay. What we want to do now is I want to make sure it's on the ground. So I'm going to click my middle mouse button to grab up this 4 panel here, and I'm going to press the E key to bring up our axis here. I want to turn on snapping by clicking this little magnet. And I want this to be a work plane snap. So when I grab this, it should just snap right to the work plane. I might be wrong about that. You know what? Let's do it with math. We'll go back to this again, make the 1920 by 1080. We can actually also change our width and height to just 1 segment each. That's okay. And then right here, I'm going to change where it's on the ground plane by doing this. I'm going to go right here to the Y on this position channel and change it to, I think it's 540. If you don't know the math of that, you can just do 1080 divided by 2. There it is. And I pressed Enter to apply. Now it is directly on the ground. So I'm going to also make it editable by pressing C, or you can click this button here. But now we want to put our image on that plane. So let's create a new material. You can also just double click in this little window and it'll bring up a new material. And this, we're just going to change the basic. We're going to go over here and just click luminance on, because this is just going to be a flat texture we're going to bring in. We'll go to our project file menu where we saved that character turnaround, and we'll bring it in just like that. Oh, you know what? I realized just now that I changed the orientation, or the width and height of that image. And that's okay. We'll adjust that here in a second. We will want to create a copy of the project location when we have a project. So actually, let me go ahead and save this before we get too far along here. So the reason I like to save my project early on is because it's going to create a texture folder inside of wherever my Cinema 4D folder is, and that's where we want our stuff to just live. So I'll create a new folder here and call it, actually no. So I'll go ahead and save this file here, and I'll call it character model with my initials and 01. And now I've pulled in this image, and it actually tells you the resolution right here when you open up this material. You can actually see right here, it's 1116 by 1080. So what we can do is now change the size of this plane right here by doing, what was it, 1116 by 1080, and then click apply. Did it do it? It did not do that. Let me try that one more time. If I change it to object mode, I wonder if it does that. It doesn't. Oh, you know what? I'm on this enable access mode. All right, let's do that again. Let's see if this works now. Okay, that worked. All right, so we'll start that part again. So making sure that your enable access mode is off. So what you can do is you can actually resize your plane to fit whatever image that you're bringing in. So I can see right here inside of this material tab that the resolution is 1116 by 1080. So that's what I want this plane to be. I want to be exactly that. So inside of this size menu down here, I can actually change this from 1920 to 1116 by 1080 and hit apply. And it has, reduced it down to the size of our material. If I do this now, it brought in the material, but it brought it in kind of upside down. It's just a weird thing that happened with this z-axis on this plane, I guess. But what we can do is we can either rotate it completely around like this and around like this. And I'm holding shift when I do that to allow it to completely go to a perfect 180. And also what we want to do inside this material is, because when we get in real close, you can see that this material, when it gets first brought in, it's really pixelated. But what we can do is go over to our editor, and under texture preview size, instead of default, go to no scaling, and it will just change it to be completely clear. There's a few other options here, but you don't want to have to mess with memory settings and stuff. You can just bring it all the way up to a 4K resolution, but no scaling just brings it in exactly the way it should look. And that seems to be fine for me most of the time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cut. This is your first modeling tool. This is called the cut tool. And actually, if you bring up the modeling menu by hitting your M key on your keyboard, you can see all of the different things you can do with modeling. There's the brush tool if you press C at this point. If you press E, it's your polygon pen. There's the K, which is your line cut, and the L is your loop and path cut. We're going to do all of those things. But for now, what I want to do is a loop. So I hit the L key. Another way to get to that menu is to go up to Mesh, Create Tools, and Transform Tools. These are where your modeling menus are. So under Create Tools, it's your loop and path cut. So M and L is a hotkey to learn. I want to make sure I'm in edge mode, because what I'm doing is I'm actually going to be cutting this into two separate pieces. So if I'm on my modeling on my edge tool, so at this point, I have this nice front and side view, but I actually want these to be two separate planes so that I can move the side view one actually to the side and move this front one over, which means I'm going to have to make a cut in this plane. This is going to be your first modeling tool. It's called the Loop Cut tool. So if you hit your M key, you can bring up your modeling menu, and you'll see all the different things you can do with your geometry. There's the B for bridge, there's the C for your brush tool. We're only going to cover what we need to know to model this character, but in this case, a really common tool to use to make nice, clean, straight line cuts is the loop tool. And we're going to do this a lot. So right now, though, I can't really see it. I can't see where the line's going to cut. I mean, really, if I hit this edge mode to make sure I'm cutting along this edge, what the loop tool is going to do is it's going to cut a perpendicular line to whatever edge I'm actually rolling over. So if I click it right here, it will create a nice loop, a straight line right down this perpendicular to wherever my mouse is. But I actually want to see through this so that if we have this opaque plane while we're modeling, it's going to be very difficult to actually model around that. So we can actually go into our material and click transparency. And what that does is it kind of creates this really nice sort of X-ray version of it. It's like even though it's at full transparency, you can actually still see the entire thing, and that's really helpful. So now you can see where that loop is going to cut, and so while I drag along this or hover along this edge, I can decide where I want to make that cut. So let's do that right here. And now what I'll do is I will create two different pieces of geometry by going up to Mesh. I went to our Faces mode by clicking this over here. And I'm going to separate this into two separate pieces of geometry by going to Commands and Split. And actually, I don't think that's entirely what I wanted to do. Did I make the cut? All right, so now what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this by holding Command and dragging it. And now I have two different versions of it, and one of them I'm just going to delete this one, and the other one I'll delete this one. Now if I move this one, you can see that it is it has that so now if I move this material follows with it, and if I grab this one, this material follow with it too. So now let's get these nice and centered up into our work plane here. Okay. And I actually want to be able to see those materials in these work planes as well. So what I'll do is I'll go to grow shading or quick shading. I'll make sure that her feet are actually right on the center line here, and dropped down to where that x-axis goes across. All right, and let's do the same thing on this one. Can't really see that one, so I'm going to turn this first one off. There we go. Nice and straight down the center. Looks pretty good. We'll turn that other one back on. And since this is the front, this is the one I want to be facing front, we'll call this front view. And this other one we'll call side view. And I'm going to group these by hitting Alt-G or Option-G, and we'll call this reference. The other thing I want to do, just because I'm a little bit like OCD about this, is I want to go up to Mesh and do an axis center to both of these. Side view, the axis should be right in the center, but it's not working. I wonder if that's because my meshes are not optimized. Let me try that again. Yes. Okay, so when I deleted that face from each of these, it kept the vertices, and we'll talk about vertices and edges and shapes and stuff in a little bit, but because it thought it had more vertices than it actually did, the axis center didn't actually go to the center of either of these. So if you optimize though, this is just a little modeling tip. If you're ever deleting faces without going in to delete vertices as well, you may end up still having vertices on your model, which will mess up all kinds of things down the road if you're not aware of that. So knowing how to go to Mesh and then Commands Optimize, or if you hit U and then O for Optimize, it will go through your whole model and find any loose vertices, and it'll delete them out of your actual model. So this is a good thing to know too. So I'm going to do this axis center axis 2. That keeps it right on the center there. And now we have our reference. Let me turn this side view 90 degrees. Oh, what in the world is happening? Huh, it's stretching out. I don't know what's happening. Huh, well, it worked that time. So just want to turn this side view 90 degrees. So sometimes people like to model like this, where they've got two planes that are literally inside of their actual perspective view, so that when they're working, they can actually see how it's lining up to all of these different things. Another way to work, and I'll show you real quick. Let me just line this front view up a little bit better down the center. Yeah, that's better. You can see it's really not perfect. You know, if I go straight down the middle here, this leg is pretty far over, and this one's over here. But that's okay. This is a 2D drawing. So once we move things into 3D, you'll have the chance to kind of adjust and make sure that everything is perfectly symmetrical. And it will look different than the 2D drawing, and that's okay. That's just, you know, this is a model. This is something for us to work from. Okay. Okay, so that's one way to work, is by having them on planes like this, being able to turn them on and off as much as you want. But another way that I like to work is by having them actually set up inside of our view planes here. So on this front view down here, we'll make this big by just going to it and clicking your middle mouse button. And under View, no, actually it's under Options. You go down to Configure or Shift-V, and we can configure this view to actually have the, I'm trying to figure out where it is. Oh, there it is. So if you click this back tab right here, you can actually bring in an image. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and grab our character turnaround. And you can turn on transparency, you can bring it up as much as you want. You can offset the X and Y. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and bring this one up and move it over so that it's right down, actually right here. I missed the Y-axis, but there it is. All right, so I want it to be just about right there. Oops, right there. And let's bring up the size a little bit more. We'll bring it up to about 1,000. Okay, so that's good that it did that, kept the ratio. All right, so there, that's pretty good. So we're going to make sure this is at 1,000 on the X and Y, and we'll do this on the right view as well. Make sure on this back tab we've got the viewport. You know, again, under Options, Configure, or Shift-V, you'll bring up this in the Attributes menu. You go over to Image and bring up that character turnaround once more. We'll bring the transparency up, make it 1,000 to match the other one. Offset X and Y, just like this. And just like that, we've got ourselves a front and side view set up in our viewports, and we also have reference panels if we want to see them inside of that. I'm not sure how much these actually line up. It looks like they don't. So I think you just have to use one or the other. You know, to be honest, I think I'm just going to go with the panels in my viewports. And then we're good to go, and we're really ready to actually start modeling at this point. So hope you're excited. I'm ready to get rolling into this stuff, and I'm going to take you on this modeling journey, and we're going to do a great job.